Marie. As Todd said, I'm originally from DC. I moved to Mexico. You can keep talking, it's fine. I moved here a few years ago. And when I first moved here, talking about terrible moments, I was in a collectively bad moment. I had moved here for my dream job, and the boss was totally abusive. I had to quit. And then my boyfriend quit me, and that was supposed to be the love of my life. I was going to move back to Argentina to be with him. So it was sort of like a bad country song. Like, I lost my job, I had no money, lost my man, no love. But I never had a dog, so the dog was okay. So I was just extremely sad, and I needed to hit a reset button. And I have a very odd reset button. I've always loved the country of Venezuela, the country where President Chávez made it so that there's no toilet paper. There are a lot of protests. Anyone that's followed South America at all in the last few years knows that it's not the most ideal place. But for me, it's heaven. And I've always felt that way ever since I was a little girl and I started going to Venezuela. So I went and I tried to rekindle my freelance writer life, which sounds sort of cliche as I say it out loud. And so I went and I started writing about the death of Chávez because he had recently passed away. And I was at sort of a highfalutin embassy party, and a guy walks up and he's like, I work at the Justice Department of Venezuela. I can get you to see Chávez's tomb. And there was one day left, supposedly, where there was an open viewing of the casket where you could see the corpse of Chávez. So I couldn't pass it up. But this guy was extraordinarily slimy. Like, no offense to anyone that's short and bald, but he was sort of that type and sort of portly. And so this was like his extreme line. He's like, I can get you to see the corpse of Chávez. And I was like, totally drawn in. So I go, and we show up, and he pulls out his badge, and to everyone he's like, I'm from the Justice Department. We pass a line of maybe 200 Chavistas lined up to see this corpse, which it happens to be at a military base on the top of a hill overlooking Caracas. And along the way, you see things like this, except for they have Chávez's face on them, and there are things that say, like, Santo Chávez, con Dios, like, people are just really obsessed with him. So we pass all these angry Chavistas who are looking at me like the blonde devil just passing by, and we get up there, and he shows his badge, and he's like, and she's a Mexican journalist. She's here to write about Chávez. And I was like, and I just stayed silent. And they look at me, and they're like, all right. They push us through to the last tour of the day, the last tour ever, to see the corpse of Chávez. We go through an entire tour of this fort where there are paintings of Che Guevara and like lots of different things to do with the Bolivarian Revolution, which don't matter to me at all. But finally we get to the corpse, and it's closed. And it's a marble tomb, which makes me wonder, how in 3 weeks did they build this massive marble monument with marble supposedly imported from Italy? But anyway, that's another issue. We leave, we go outside, and there's something about the US which I've never understood, which is the 21-gun salute. I really don't get it. But apparently in Caracas, it's a 5-cannon salute. So we're on the edge of this hill overlooking Caracas, and there are 5 cannons, and I think they're empty. So they're just gonna make the noise, which seems really pointless. But so there we are. And the general of this fort goes, you, the Mexican, come up here. And then he announces that there's a special guest, a foreign guest, to a group of about 100 Chavistas. And they're all just staring at me pretty angrily. And so there I am. And there's a speech going on about all of the great deeds and what a great leader Chávez was. And I'm standing there. And he goes, so, Mexico, huh? So, yeah, I've never been, but I heard that presidential palace is really nice. What's it called again? I had no idea. So I had just moved there from Argentina, and the first thing that came to my mind was La Casa Rosada, which is the presidential palace in Argentina. And without a beat, he was just like, oh, yeah, that place. So the cannons go off, and finally I'm allowed to go, and there are lots of hugs and kisses. And before we leave, this slimy little man that was with me goes to the general like, oh, do you have any questions for her? You want to talk about anything having to do with Mexico? And I was like, I really got to go. I got a deadline. And I bolt off. We run through a crowd of Chavistas, and I guess I know that I'm supposed to have a story, like I'm such an independent woman and I made it through this and I can do anything. But essentially, I just don't think that there was a point. I think that I got away with one of my 9 lives being used up and not ending up in a Venezuelan prison. Thank you.